Welcome. I'm so excited we've made this work because I think we've been trying to make this work for like over a year now. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
finally, you're just so busy, right? I mean, this space has just exploded, which is
Yeah.
great. Yeah,
Yes, and life has exploded too. I mean, there's always so much going on behind the scenes too.
that's so true. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so true. Hey. Now,
Yeah.
so why don't we start by talking a little bit about how did you get into this space? What is your story and what got you passionate about helping women in this midlife perimenopausal menopausal transition?
So the first 5 years of my career, I was actually a hospital dietitian. I covered cardiology units. I absolutely loved it. But I really wanted to branch out. I always wanted a private practice. I wanted the flexibility in life that working for myself had to offer. But also, I knew that I was not making a dent in people's lives in the hospital because you had a whopping 10 minutes to educate them before they were discharged. They were on their way out the door, and there was no continuity, no follow through. So, in my private practice, there were the first two women I saw. One she was 34 and had MS. So we were working on like her autoimmune protocol. And the second was a therapist named Arlene. She was in her 50s at the time. I was in my 20s. I should add that while I was at the hospital, I pursued a functional medicine training.
Mhm.
And so that was, but while I was still working, I'm just thinking at the time I was working for a functional medicine doctor. I left the hospital once I was trained
Yeah,
and still had my side hustle. So,
yeah.
anyway, Arlene comes in. She says, I am sitting all day. I'm midlife. I can't lose this last 5 pounds. And I can only work out two, maybe three times a week. And the rest of the time, my butt is in this chair. Help me lose the menopause, the weight. So I knew in my 20s, I was like, this is going to be, I'm going to get a million Arlene's in my practice over the years. So I took what I knew with my functional medicine training and I really started experimenting with carbs. And the um, real diet outline that the template that I was following at the time was I eliminated any starches other than fruits and vegetables for 30 days and had the women eat as much protein as they wanted, some fat. They weren't counting calories, they weren't logging foods. There were no apps then. It was like
Yeah,
you wrote it down in a Weight Watchers notebook and counted points, right?
yeah.
So that would help women lose 5 to 10 pounds.
Uh-huh.
For Arlene, what she really preferred was fasting 1 day a week. And that was back in the day when we did hot water, lemon, cayenne, and
Yes,
honey.
I've been
That
there.
was like, and she did that 1 day a week
Yeah.
and lost weight. But for everyone else, I'm thinking of like I had this wonderful client, Mariam. She was like the fruit and veggie for 30 days, lose 10 pounds. And then, so those were kind of the two models that I started with. Now, the interesting thing is, back in 2002, like I was working for this functional medicine doctor when that damn Women's Health Initiative study came out and watched women totally get yanked
Mm.
off their hormones, including my mom. And that was just like such a huge heartbreak
Yeah.
at the time. So I had those two pieces of intel to really start to help women get more and more vocal,
Mm.
stay up to date on the research. The research has changed. I mean, how I practice now is not how I practiced 5 years ago or 10 years ago. The research is constantly evolving. But, I knew I've had the foundations for a really long time on
Yeah.
how to treat women in perimenopause. And I work with women all day, every day. So, of course, and I go through it myself. So, of course, I'm going to want to help women advocate
Mhm.
for themselves. It's just in my blood.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And so I want to talk about that, advocating
Mhm.
for themselves, because a lot of women go to their doctor and they've got these symptoms, and their doctors say to them, it's just part of getting older, right? They say, suck it up. That's just part of it, right? Yeah, you're losing your hair. Well, you're supposed to, like you're supposed to have bald patches, yeah, you're putting on some weight. It's to be expected, like whatever the case may be. Yeah, you've lost your libido. Oh, well. So there's either doctors who say that or doctors who will try to tell women that nothing's changing, that they're not in perimenopause, that there's nothing that can be done, right? So, why don't we talk a little bit about why that's not true? We don't have to put up with these changes and the gaslighting that goes on. Why is that going on? I know a lot of women, you and I think, understand it, but there's so
Yeah.
many women who come to us, right? They can't believe that their doctors won't run a full thyroid panel, right? They can't believe that their doctors won't acknowledge that they could be in perimenopause because they're still cycling. Like what's going on there? Why are doctors so resistant?
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you the dirtiest secret that nobody tells you about the medical profession. And this was told to me by a colleague of mine who I worked with when I was at the hospital. He was a
Right.
medical resident, and he said, um, because I would get him to run all these tests for my patients, and I would say, well, why do you do it for me? Why do you do this? He's like, well, you're my friend, so I do. But he said no doctor ever wants to run extra tests because then they're responsible for the follow-up and the care. Now
Yeah.
to now in the US, it's probably, I don't know if it's different in Oz or not, but in the US, right now the standard of care reimburses 10, maybe 15 minutes with someone. And
Right.
boy, nobody's touching you unless it's a GYN. Nobody's actually palpating your thyroid. No one's
Hmm.
looking at your hair, skin, and nails. No one's like testing. I mean, maybe at a physical, you get your reflexes tested, whatever. But there really isn't the hands-on care that there used to be. And I grew up with a family of physicians and surgeons and nurses. So I know what hands-on care looks like. And so the other problem is that uh, medical school education, and as I say this, there's about 13 states that want to mandate menopause education in medical schools.
Right.
But for now, it's not mandated. And a
Hmm.
lot of physicians do not feel comfortable prescribing hormones. They're not
Hmm.
familiar with hormones, even though the FDA in this country
Yeah.
has, we have FDA vaginal estrogen, estrogen
Hmm.
patches, and oral progesterone. We still don't have testosterone FDA approved. Now,
Hmm.
Australia does, right? As
Hmm.
Australia is one of the country that does for
Hmm.
women.
Yeah, which is
It's
amazing. It's
it's
amazing that the
amazing.
FDA hasn't got something that Australia does. Usually that's not the way, because usually
Mm.
you guys have everything. You need it, you can get it. But yeah, we got testosterone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think drug companies are like scratching their heads on how to make it more profitable. But it's, it's run through insurance. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really crazy. And it's certainly very upsetting and it's certainly very disappointing. I mean, I remember when I was going through horrible insomnia, right? My
Hmm.
doctor literally handed me a copy of the Kabbalah, and it was a little red book, and he said, put this under your pillow at night.
Oh,
I was like, are
Christ.
you freaking kidding me? And then other doctors told me, drink a glass of wine at night. One doctor
Oh,
said, well, you just have to walk for an hour every night. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
yes, so I can get eaten by bears and coyotes. No, thank
yeah,
you. Because where
yeah,
I live, there's no sidewalks or street lamps. I
yeah,
live in
right.
the country.
Mm,
And then the doctor who gave me the Kabbalah also said, oh, and here's a prescription for Xanax because it's
yeah,
non-addictive. Non-addictive. Do you
that's
know?
yeah, that's crazy.
It was 5 months to
Mm,
detox off
I'm
an
sure.
eighth of a pill
Whoa,
Xanax.
no.
I went through the most horrible rebound insomnia where
Oh, that's
if I did
horrible.
fall asleep, I would have horrible nightmares. And like the worst one was, I remember this man his face was in my face and he was screaming at me. And I like sat up with like jackhammering heart. Like I
Oh.
went through the most horrible withdrawal and rebound
An
anxiety.
eighth of a pill.
An
So,
eighth of a pill.
and
It was
that's
that
scary.
addictive.
Of
I
course it
know
is. Yeah. So
it
how long
is.
were you on that then to be
I was on it, and I was on a very low dose. I was probably on it for at least a year. And at the
okay?
time too, I had really bad mold and Epstein-Barr and Lyme. Like
Oh,
nobody, it
nobody did
was
the
such a
digging.
cluster. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody did the digging, and
Yeah.
I was very lost in the process. And
Yeah.
for all that I know, I didn't know. You don't always apply the rules to yourself. So it
Yeah.
was so different. So yeah, I
Yeah,
really
of
struggled
course.
for a long, long, long time. It's pretty much amazing. I did not like jump out a window,
Yes.
truly.
Well, insomnia is absolute torture. absolute
Yeah.
torture. And
Yeah.
I'm lucky that for me, I've had bouts of it more so when I've more so in anxiety induced. So for me, not so much. I'm
Mhm.
46. Yes, I'm in perimenopause, but for me, I've had
Yeah.
my share of anxiety induced insomnia. It's absolutely horrific. But when it
Yes.
comes to perimenopause, I want to touch on that
Mm.
more. I want to talk about
Yeah.
these things that occur in perimenopause, like driving, right? A lot of women start to fear driving. Or fear, I don't know if you've come across this, but I've come across this.
No.
Yeah, like, and I think maybe it's tied into anxiety. Maybe it's tied into how, obviously in perimenopause, our anxiety can skyrocket.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
so that's part of maybe why people start to fear driving or fear long driving. It's just all these little symptoms that can pop up and other things too. And women think that they're going insane, right?
Yeah. And why do they fear driving? Just anxiety in general,
I
or
I'm
is it like,
assuming it's anxiety, right? I think it must
okay,
just be anxiety. But
okay, got
this
it.
happened to me a little bit last year, whereby I'm fine driving. I drive all the time. If there's an area that I know, I have absolutely no fear, no problem driving. But when I have to get on a highway and drive at high speeds or for prolonged periods of time,
Um,
I've never been great, but I've never had a huge problem. But last year, I had to drive up 4 hours to see one of my best mates. And that was the night before doing that drive, I started to get in my head about it.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, and I've come across clients too, a handful of clients who have said, I can no longer drive. I have now got fear of driving or fear of driving long
Oh,
distances. I
yeah.
spoke to my team practitioner, Michelle, about this too, and she's also come across this with women as well, driving in
Mhm.
perimenopause. But I put it down to changes in hormones, stress resilience, anxiety
Yes.
levels, the erratic hormones that just make you more vulnerable, right? Just not feeling
Yes.
as confident anymore.
That tracks. That's
Yeah,
completely tracks. And certainly a 4 hour drive is a sizable drive.
it
Like,
is.
yes, when I'm fatigued, I actually do caffeinate a little because I don't want
Yeah,
to, yeah, have an
yeah,
accident or anything. But
yeah, exactly.
aside
Yeah.
from that, I think I was an F1 driver in my past life.
Oh, really?
I love it.
That's awesome. So let's talk about, so a couple of things we touched on. I want to go back to that insomnia
Yeah.
piece, but,
Mhm.
and I want to talk also about, yeah, the Women's Health Initiative. What happened there? Let's chat about that. And, and,
Okay.
and doctors are still to this day, so many doctors are reluctant, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
get it because the tide is turning with HRT, but it's
Yes.
turning very, it seems quick online where we are, right? There's been this huge surge, right? But I
Yeah.
think when I listen to my clients and listen to their interactions with their doctors, a lot of them are
Yeah.
still incredibly hesitant and giving completely wrong information. Like, I
That's
don't know
right.
if I've missed a piece here, but I've had two doctors now, one yesterday, who've told my clients to take their progesterone on day one of their bleed until they ovulate and then stop it. Have you ever had people
Mm.
told that? That's not the first
Yes.
time. What's going on?
Yes, I have heard the most cockamamie
Yeah,
information out there. I'm like, this is not appropriate at
right.
all. Not at all. And so, yes, I had someone DM me over Instagram this week saying, my doctor told me to switch from my estradiol patch to Intra Rosa, which is vaginal DHEA.
Oh,
I was
Christ.
like,
Yeah.
no, is that accurate? I said, well, obviously I can't give medical advice over Instagram, but I was like, you use Intrarosa for vaginal dryness if estradiol has failed. You don't use it to replace
Mm,
your systemic estrogen.
mm,
So I was like, please find a new provider.
yeah.
Like you're not getting the right information.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that women's health initiative study. So
Mm,
first of all, the when it comes to research studies, design is so important, right? You
mhm,
wouldn't wear anything other than a couture gown on the red carpet, right? Because it has
mhm,
structure and aligned and keeps
mhm,
everything in place, right? Well, the Women's Health Initiative study was designed so poorly. The subject matters were a minimum of 10 years postmenopausal. A lot of them had fatty liver, history of, or were at risk of coronary artery disease,
Yep.
fatty liver.
Yep.
They weren't at their ideal body weight. Okay, so they had been off hormones for 10 years. Then they were given estrogen, conjugated equine estrogen. So synthetic oral estrogen derived from the urine of pregnant horses. And then it was coupled with synthetic progestins, right? So that's problematic. And so they were given this cocktail, no testosterone, right? So oral estrogen has to pass through the liver, which is much harder on the body than via transdermal application. And so the increase of blood clots increased from 0 to 6 women in 10,000, which is not really statistically significant at all, number one. Number two, and so this is why doctors are like, oh, no, you can't give progesterone. And, you can't, all this causes cancer and blood clots. Okay, well, first of all, transdermal estrogen, there is 0 risk of blood clot. 0. Even if you have factor V Leiden, even if you have MTHFR gene, even if you've had deep vein thromboses, 0 risk of blood clot because you are on a microdose. You have a higher risk of blood clot with birth control pills, higher risk of cancer with birth control pills because these are oral synthetic estrogens. They're not bioidentical, and they are synthetic progestins. And but now synthetic progestins are great if you want birth control because it stops ovulation. But guess what happens in perimenopause? Usually the first hormone to decline is progesterone. And so all of a sudden we're getting, on a good day, right? Anxiety, difficulty falling asleep. We're getting these crime scene periods in late perimenopause and this unbridled meno rage because progesterone normally opposes estrogen and keeps it in check. And left unopposed, that's when you get the blood clots, the rage, the tearfulness, the achy breasts, the bloating, the weight gain. Like you're just like, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. It's just like having PMS all the time. And it's not your fault. It's just an absolute unopposed estrogen running wild. So again, oral bioidentical progesterone has these benefits. It's a precursor to GABA, raises all these wonderful neurotransmitters in the brain, very calming, help you sleep, help your mood stay happy, and it quiets that anxiety. So just that poorly designed study, even though it's been retracted, even though online, the Menopause Society has updated a position paper twice, it is not getting carried over to medical schools. And you could say, oh, but there isn't enough research. But guess what? There is enough research. And also there is research to support that, yes, if you've had a hysterectomy, if you've had your uterus removed, doctors will say you don't need progesterone because progesterone's primary job is to protect the uterus. But again, the mental health benefits and the sleep, and to a degree, helping with hot flashing and energy and mood and cognition, you better believe progesterone.
Oh, but there's even more benefits for progesterone, right? Supports
Even
your
more.
brain, supports your breasts, supports your cardiovascular system. Yeah. Yeah, that's very well said. All the authors of that study have walked back that poorly interpreted data, but the damage was done, right? So Time magazine ran with a big headline, basically, hormones are going to kill everybody. And it's so hard. Once there is something that has been sensationalized, it doesn't matter what that thing is. We've seen this time and time again. It is so hard to reverse people's thinking, right? And quite frankly, when all the authors walked back their claims and said, well, actually, these hormones actually showed benefit, that wasn't splashed across the headlines. So, it's not, I don't know why. Like that would have been quite jaw-dropping and eye-opening. So,
well, and here's the other rub, Tara, is that even women who were getting those conjugated oral synthetic estrogens had better
Yes.
cardiac outcomes than women who
Yes.
got no hormones at
Yes.
all. So it's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of done. You know, people are
Yeah.
arguing online. You've got to do biased cream. That's compounded because it's more breast protective versus an estradiol patch. I'm like,
Mhm.
just get on it. Don't
Just get on
go
it.
with your insurance.
That's
Go
what
with
I
what you
think.
can stay on for what you can afford for long periods of time and what gives you the best results.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
No,
it. Like, don't sweat the small stuff. Look
the only
at the
thing
big
to
picture.
sweat, I agree. And the only thing to sweat is don't go on a progestin necessarily, because
Right.
they're the ones that in the Women's Health Initiative cause the harm. So the
Yes.
progestin, the fake progesterone, go on the real deal for progesterone. But yeah, I agree. Like when it comes to your estrogen type, yeah, you got biased, you got estradiol, you've got creams, gels, patches, just get on
Yes.
some.
But
Um,
here's the other thing. I do
yeah,
want to interject because some
please.
women, about 30% of women I treat, and it's
Yeah,
common,
yeah,
have a real progesterone intolerance.
yes,
And they don't tolerate. They don't tolerate
very much
vaginally. They
so.
don't tolerate rectally. They don't tolerate orally.
Oh,
So then in those cases, you can get a
a
progestin
progestin.
IUD if you want
Mhm.
the uterine protection. But
Yeah,
we have to do workarounds for those women for anxiety and give GABA and give
yeah, for sure.
magnesium and theanine and
Yeah,
a lot of other we do have to come at it from a different way to
yeah.
help people sleep.
Okay, so I have a question. You said a lot of your women don't tolerate vaginal progesterone, and I find that interesting because
Some,
some, okay.
some,
And what do you find? Because definitely oral progesterone can cause big issues for quite a lot of women. Quite a lot of
yes,
women. I was listening to somebody, and she's quite well known as a progesterone expert and has a wealth of knowledge. But she seemed to think that it's very, very rare that people will respond to oral. I don't agree at all. It is
right,
incredibly common for women
yes,
to take an oral progesterone capsule and then to get very groggy or to get exacerbated anxiety, right? Or whatever the case may be,
depression.
depression, low mood. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see that a um, very common fix is to use it vaginally.
Hmm.
But I am wondering because there's a few people I'm thinking of who seem to still get a bit groggy. And I'm like, really? Because
Yeah.
I think it still does turn into allopregnanolone to a degree,
Yes.
not to the degree that oral does. So I'm trying to figure that out. Like there must still be some going into that allopregnanolone, right? So what do you see with people who
Yes.
can't tolerate vaginal? Is it the same as you see with women who can't tolerate oral progesterone?
Yes. And GI side effects too. Diarrhea is like a
Diarrhea.
big
Oh,
one, an
okay.
upset stomach that I have seen
Constipation, I
as
see a
well.
lot,
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
even with vaginal.
that's so interesting to me. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's such a highly vascularized um,
Yes.
uh,
Area.
area. And I mean, if you've ever heard Dr. Lindsay Berkson speak,
Yeah.
she herself uses, she'll talk about this openly. I'm not spilling her secrets, but
Hmm.
she has compounded these, they almost look like miniature troches.
Hmm.
And she inserts them vaginally. She does all her HRT vaginally
Yeah.
because the absorption is so
It's so much better.
superior.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I find that really interesting too. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, yes, vaginally. But then there's a cohort of women that I will send when they don't tolerate it. I will send them. I don't know if you know Dr. David Rosensweet,
Oh yeah. He's been on the
right?
podcast. He's a mentor of mine. I've learned a lot from him. Oh,
A
he's
lot.
wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
his providers, right, they are giving topicals in this jojoba oil
Yes.
suspension, and then
Yes.
that is way better tolerated, and you can titrate. And I think
Yeah.
it really empowers women who've really been otherwise suffering, and they tolerate
Absolutely.
it well. So that's
Yeah.
another option. It's more
Yep.
expensive, but it does work beautifully.
Yeah, the topicals do. And I'm thinking of a particular client who has struggled with the oral, struggled with the vaginal, but when she uses it topically, she doesn't struggle so much, but she still gets the constipation. Isn't
Mm,
that fascinating? Anyway, there's some deep gut work that needs to be done there. And so we should maybe touch on,
yes,
beyond HRT, what do we need to think
yes,
about, right? Because HRT is great, but it's not a magic bullet. So I'd love to speak about like beyond HRT. What are your thoughts? What needs to be focused on? And also, can we just quickly circle back to that insomnia? Because I know that this is such a
Yes.
terrible, probably the most debilitating symptom for women. So,
Yes.
what are your top tips for women who are going through that right now? What would you say they need to be considering?
Okay, well, I'm always going to do the diet and lifestyle first because
Hmm.
you can never, if you don't fix those things, it's like trying to build a house on a base of
Yeah.
quicksand. Like, you can never out hormone or out supplement any of it. So diet, obviously, 30 to 40, you've all heard this, ladies listening. I know you're like, I know about the protein. Okay, don't even talk to me. Like, but really, 4 to 6 ounces of protein 3 to 4 times a day is so imperative for
Yeah.
balancing your blood sugar, supporting your adrenals.
Mhm.
Really, really important. Um, Lots and lots of fiber, right?
Yeah.
Flaxseed, chia
Yeah.
seed, cruciferous vegetables,
Yeah.
fresh fruits. No one's getting
Mhm.
fat on banana and mangoes. So
No.
just eat real food, real fresh fruit.
Hmm.
Okay. And then, of course, like sweet potatoes and squashes and lentils and beans, if your
Yeah.
gut tolerates that, and quinoa, great. Then caffeine and alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, really, people, this is the other crazy thing. I'm sure you see this too. People are terrified of hormones. I'm going to get cancer.
Yeah.
Really? Okay, well, let me ask you this. How much wine do you drink? Oh, I have
Uh-huh.
1 to 2 glasses every night,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Uh-huh.
wine is a class 1 carcinogen, and your liver puts the pause on metabolizing and methylating your hormones
Yeah.
in your liver for like 6 hours after every cocktail you drink. So you
Yeah.
can actually really screw up your hormones. You're not, hormones and alcohol don't mix well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say never drink because
Yeah.
I don't follow that rule myself,
Yeah.
but I'm very, very
Oh.
judicious.
Oh, my friend and
Yeah.
I were talking the other day
Oh,
about when was the last time we had a drink, and it was on my
oh,
birthday, which was the 5th of June. So we're at the
yeah,
what are we, the 15th of July, and we're
yeah.
actually going away to Fiji. And but we were talking about how I'm kind of bummed because we don't drink, and it will kind of be nice to like we drink sparingly, but maybe we'll have a
Yeah,
cocktail or two. But I think we'll dive into the
yeah.
kava instead because it just you get to this point in life too where it doesn't feel good. You do not methylate it out as well. You lose the enzyme that supports digesting that alcohol. But then to your point, it's damaging to us. But I think you were going to go there with sleep too. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know somebody, a little quick story. Recently, I gave them a little supplement, it was GABA, L-theanine, right? Because they've been struggling with sleep for years, not on hormones, but they're elderly, a history of breast cancer, a little bit tricky to get them on hormones at this point, a little bit of progesterone. But anyway, she says to me, that's a miracle pill, right? I've been sleeping now for over a week. But I've been on her back about you got to stop drinking alcohol. Well, yesterday she says to me that she has significantly cut back. And I was like, well, that's what's supporting your sleep. Like, yeah, the pills are supportive, but no amount of GABA or L-theanine is going to override if you're drinking a few glasses of wine. You're going to be, people think it puts them to sleep, but that's going to be disrupting your blood sugar. You're going to be waking up. The power of putting down that alcohol for sleep, everything else as well, is massive.
It's massive, and it also regulates your cortisol. You're going to get a huge cortisol spike and then wake up at 3 a.m. and not fall
Yes.
back asleep. So, yeah. And
Oh,
then you're craving the next day. You're irritable. You're so
yeah.
tired. That's why, yes, if I have a cocktail like you, I'll drink on vacation because I can nap the next day. But otherwise,
Mm.
no, I don't have time or desire. And
No.
also, ladies, when you're so frustrated with how your body composition is hitting in
Yeah.
midlife, alcohol is not going to help support that at all. It's going to be to your detriment. It really interferes with your thyroid function,
Yeah.
takes your body a good 3 to 4 days to recoup from each cocktail. So, yeah, it's like, is the inflammation worth it?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. But more often than not, it's
It's
not.
not.
And then
Mm.
same with caffeine too. We lose
Yeah.
the enzyme that helps your liver metabolize out caffeine. And people say, well, I just have 1 cup before 8 in the morning. But what most people don't realize is how their sleep improves when they go off caffeine. And then they have more energy And
Yeah.
so they don't need the caffeine to be given. Now, sometimes people like the taste. I'm like, fine, get an herbal version or get, cacao, a mushroom or
Mm-hmm.
cacao mix,
Mm-hmm.
something like a lion's mane or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So the diet piece is really important. Really being very mindful of your mental real estate and your stress management. If you
Yeah.
want to disrupt your screen sleep, just scroll on technology, doom scroll before bed.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to really, optimize your sleep, you want to do maybe a little journaling, maybe just practicing some gratitude, just putting your hand on your heart and listing 5 things you're grateful for. And
Mm-hmm.
what people don't realize is the mental conditioning that is so important, because how you fall asleep is how you wake up. If you fall asleep grouchy, irritable,
Mm-hmm.
frustrated, in a place of lack, you will wake up exactly the same place. Whereas if you go to bed with gratitude
Nice.
and worry, and peace, and I tell people, I'm like, make a God box, right? Where it could be a
Mm.
tissue box or a shoe box. Just write down everything you want to release, put it in that box, let
Yeah.
God handle it, or
Yeah.
the universe, or whatever higher power
Yeah.
you ascribe to, right? So turn your problems over, give them away, meditate, which is really just deep breathing. No one's great
Mhm.
at meditation. That's why it's a practice, right? But
Mhm.
it's really important to curate your mental state before bed and think
Love that.
about what you will take on and not take on,
Love
right?
that.
And then, of course, like, I'm a big fan of morning light,
Yeah.
walking outside first thing in the
Mhm.
morning, or just sitting outside, just
Yep.
looking up at the sky. That regulates your circadian rhythm. But
Yeah.
this, if your mindset isn't right, your mindset and
Mhm.
your thoughts drive your hormones, and
Yeah.
progesterone takes the biggest hit. And it's a
Yeah.
vicious cycle, right? Because low progesterone causes anxiety, and then anxiety
Mm.
causes low progesterone. So that is a case where intervention is really important,
Yeah.
right? With progesterone. But when you're doing all the other things, you'll see
Yeah.
the greatest result there.
Yep.
So
What
yeah.
about estrogen for sleep?
Yes. Okay. So progesterone is great at helping you fall asleep, and estrogen is great for helping you stay asleep, because it's
Mhm.
going to keep your hot flashes under control,
Mhm.
keeps your nervous system more regulated.
Mhm. Mhm.
And progesterone, too, if you're on progesterone and estrogen, you're still not sleeping, you can get compounded to a sustained release formula.
Yeah.
That
Good
is
point.
also very helpful.
Yeah.
But also this, do not be afraid to go to a high dose of progesterone. And I
Mhm.
am quoting my colleague, Dr. Anat Sapam. I don't know if you
Mhm.
know her
No.
from, she's part of Dr. Rosensweet's cohort.
Oh,
And
okay.
I,
Awesome.
I refer people to her all the time. She's in
Mm.
California. And she really taught me, you can dose, she herself has patients up to 900 or
Yeah.
1,000 milligrams of progesterone every night,
Wait a minute. Wait a
safely
minute. Oral?
oral.
Wow. I mean, I've known of women and I've had some people who are taking 800, 600, but
Yep.
and I don't know if you know Carol Peterson.
I don't.
Yeah, Carol Peterson talks a lot about high dose progesterone, and she's actually had people before go up to 2,500, not oral, combo, topical, but yeah, 1,000 oral. Wow, that's a heavy,
Yeah.
heavy dose.
I'm up to 400, and that's
Okay,
my
yeah,
sweet spot. If I hit
yep,
450, I start weeping and getting
yeah,
depressed. So I'm like, nope. But the
yeah.
400 is helpful for my sleep.
Okay,
But some people really do need, and I can
yeah.
tell you also, when I had my son, he's now 18, but after
Mhm.
childbirth, like, my nervous system got so rewired. And I've done
Yeah,
so much trauma therapy and
yeah,
work and journeys, and
yeah.
there is nothing that touches it. And I take so many
Mhm.
supplements and still
Mhm.
high dose progesterone just to sleep. It's like my nervous system completely rewired. And I
Yeah.
never had insomnia before then.
Oh,
So
pregnancy.
that
What's the
was,
number?
oh my goodness. Yeah,
I
I
had
wouldn't treat
postpartum
it.
thyroiditis. I got postpartum thyroiditis after my first, and that was, she was born now, we're going 14 years ago. And I didn't know then what I know now. And I was a nutcase. I was a nutcase because I was
Oh,
revved, right? I mean, there's
yeah.
compounding factors. I was living in Vancouver in Canada, and we had no family around. My firstborn, I was running another business. But I was like
Mm,
losing all this weight, and I went to the doctor actually here. We came out here and I went to the doctor and he ran some thyroid labs, but I did not know what I know now. So all I remember is seeing TSH because I was walking up the street with my mum and I just kind of lost it at her. And then I was like, something's not right with me. I need to see a doctor. And I walked up the
mm,
street and walked into a doctor's office. Anyway, I got an appointment. Long story short, he ran some bloods. I have no idea what else he ran, but all I remember is going back into his office like the next day and he just said something like, there's an answer, here it is. And he showed me the labs.
gosh.
And I think my TSH was 26.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I think I was swinging
Yeah.
around postpartum thyroiditis, but there was nothing offered to me. I don't remember seeing free T4, free T3, or anything else or antibodies, but there was nothing suggested or offered except when I got back to Canada and I was given a beta blocker. But
Right.
I didn't know. Nobody talked about diet, lifestyle, minerals, gut work, nothing. Nobody tested my antibodies. And then
Mm,
when I had my second daughter a few years later, I got the postpartum. I can't remember the bloods and if I did them, but I definitely was revved up again.
mm,
Postpartum pregnancy, women often say, many different things changed after I had a baby. Name the symptoms. But people
yeah.
say they didn't feel the same. They've never felt the same since. But women don't realize how much rebuilding we have to do after we
Hmm.
create a life and birth that life, let alone if we're breastfeeding and up, at night.
Yeah.
It is
Yep.
so depleting. But most women don't do the work to replete after they've had babies and then they hit
That's right.
perimenopause and it's
That's
10
right.
times worse. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
nailed it, girl. That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy. Okay, so fantastic. Now, why don't we just quickly touch on before we wrap up, how do women know that they're in perimenopause, right? Because I don't think women understand how long it can last.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women still think they need to be 50 or 51 or,
Yeah.
or that perimenopause is just like a couple of months before you've got no period. Like, how do people know? How long does it span? What ages do we have to be aware? And what might be the red flags for somebody to go, gosh, maybe I am in perimenopause?
So there was a great research article I saw about 2 weeks ago
I think I
that
saw it
now
too.
there's evidence showing
Yeah.
that women can start perimenopause in their 30s. And
Yeah.
I know this to be true because I have
Yeah.
seen it in my
Yep.
practice.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, and so yes, and again, with women having children later, they do. They go right from postpartum to perimenopause, or they were perimenopausal before, and
Yes.
maybe their doctor started them on progesterone, so it ramped up their ovulation a little, got a little
Mhm.
spicy there, and then
Mhm.
boom,
Yeah.
they were fertile, got pregnant, and right
Yeah.
back into perimenopause. So,
Yeah.
um, a great indicator is disruption or changes in sleep,
Mhm.
disruption or changes in mood,
Mhm.
heavier, your periods are getting more intense, more heavy, maybe closer together, maybe farther
Mhm.
apart, but just more irregular.
Mhm.
But also mood. If you are like a different person,
Yeah.
right? The first half of your cycle versus the second,
Mhm.
that is the biggest indicator to me. That, and you start passing clots, all of a sudden you're very estrogen dominant as your
Yeah.
progesterone bottoms out. Like that to me, it's just common sense. And
Mhm.
also, again, the mental health effects, like a big kick up in anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
It's just, if your PMS, like I remember knowing I was in it because my PMS used to start like 10 days out, clockwork. It
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
exactly 10 days out. I'd be irritable one day. And
Mhm.
then I was like, okay, my cycle's coming in 10 days.
Mhm.
Then it was just the irritability just kept going up for longer periods of
Mhm.
time. And I remember my son making a very flip comment to me about a family member.
Mhm.
And I was heading out the door and I slammed it so hard. And I stood there and I was like,
Mm.
I was like, call the doctor, get some progesterone, because
It
I
was
was
like
like,
me on
oh
the
my
street when I
God.
was like to my mom, I need a doctor.
I need a doctor. I
Yeah,
need a
these
prescription.
hormones.
Like,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Powerful.
and we can laugh about, but at the time you're just like,
It's awful.
so yeah, you feel shame, you feel embarrassed, or you
Yeah.
just hate everybody. You hate there's so
Absolutely.
much self-loathing that
Yeah.
goes with that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
ladies, and I remember crying to my homeopath. I was yelling at my son. She's like, forgive yourself. Just here's some homeopathics and, like reset your mood a little. She would give me a lot for like my PMS symptoms, which
Yeah.
once I got on progesterone, it
Oh, it changed.
leveled everything
Yeah.
out. Yep.
Yeah. 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 Well said. So, yeah, ladies listening, if you're in your 30s, don't think it's too early, right? It may not
Yeah.
be too early. It can last up to 10, 12 years, this perimenopausal transition. So, the sooner you get help, the better, because you don't want to be,
Yes.
gripping on for dear life for too long, because there are things that we can do. So, with the,
That's right. But
yeah,
I'll just say this. If you're
yeah,
still, in your 30s, try bringing in chaste tree,
yeah,
or, give it 3 months and see if
yeah,
you can naturally get your progesterone more robust that way. Like,
yeah,
I don't necessarily put 30-year-olds on HRT,
yeah,
or if I do, it's like a very low dose topical
yeah,
progesterone that you can buy, on a supplement website.
yeah,
But try the chaste tree first, because it
yeah,
can really help. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell everybody where they can find you. What are your offerings?
Mm. So many. I have a hormone poo-poo platter of offerings that
I
I am
love it.
redoing. So you can go to estherblum.com. You can go to my Instagram account at Gorgeous Esther. I work with women. I have multi-tiers of how people can work with me, and I'm launching my podcast. You will have to come on.
Fun,
It's called the Midlife Realignment, and that is launching this September.
right?
So absolutely, but just get on my mailing list. I'm in regular touch
Yeah,
with my people, and I'm on Instagram, Monday through Friday. So yes,
amazing. And we will
yes,
put everything in the show notes as always. Thank you
yes.
so much for your time. It was
Thank
so
you,
much fun
Tara.
speaking with you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye.
I am not a medical professional, and the information provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. I do not have access to your individual medical history or circumstances, so the content discussed here should not be considered as medical advice. Before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or considering the use of supplements, please consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your doctor to ensure it's safe and appropriate for your specific situation. Any decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are at your own discretion and risk. Thank you for tuning in.